So Joker was getting a lot of flack, and to be honest, I went in with middling expectations. I didn't think I was going to love it this much. So Joker is the quote-unquote new origin story for everyone's favorite Batman villain, Joker, played by Joaquin Phoenix. And I say quote-unquote there because this movie does not have a sequel. It's not going to get one, most likely. It ended well enough that it doesn't need one, and frankly, a sequel would spoil it. Now, personally speaking, whenever I see something described as movie of the year or Oscar-worthy, I usually see it as overly written, pretentious crap. It's written just to get Oscars. But in this case, it's actually appropriate. No joke, Joker is the best movie I've seen this year. In terms of writing quality, I've been comparing it to Gran Torino and Dead Poets Society. It is that good. So in terms of plot, I see the movie kind of as a retelling of Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. Only there, Joker went through a horrendous day that completely drove him mad. In this movie, it's pretty much his entire life. And that was one of the things that I think the movie absolutely nailed. He's got a crap job with a crap boss, bad turns left and right, he gets mugged early on by a bunch of kids and beaten up in an alleyway for no reason. It's just because he lives in Gotham, and Gotham is a terrible, terrible city. And he has so little to really hold on to. The best thing the movie did, perhaps, was make Joker an absolutely sympathetic villain. Because Arthur Fleck, his name before the persona change, tries to be good. He tries to do the right thing, and he tries to stay positive, but every single time he does, life just goes and spits in his face. It always turns back on him somehow. Whether through someone else's misunderstanding or just the aggression of the people around him, he has no good in his life. The first scene we see Joaquin Phoenix on screen instantly cemented that idea, because in a brilliant moment of act, he's laughing. He's got a condition, which I'll explain in a minute, but he's forcibly laughing. But the look in his eyes, he is clearly depressed. And every time he searches for answers, they turn out to be dead ends, or it leads him into more trouble. And there's always this overbearing cynicism of the cruelty of the people around him. It gets to the point where he has to force these delusions in order to have some semblance of happiness. And let me say, Joaquin Phoenix absolutely got this part perfect. He was the best choice to play this part. I can see Joker being very uncomfortable to play for a number of reasons, not just because he's socially awkward, but just the frustration that Arthur had to go through, the depression, the trying to keep a brave face on when everything is going wrong. And eventually what happens when all that anger and stress and frustration builds up and explodes at long last. Now, I'm not going to spoil it or anything, I'll speak vaguely here. Through all the movies and TV shows, I've probably seen thousands of deaths. Some of them have made me laugh, some of them have made me cry. Most of them were actually pretty benign, like actors being blown up in battles and things like that. But this movie contains the one death scene where I was actually kind of afraid. And I'm not talking about like afraid for the sake of the characters on screen. I'm talking about like personally afraid. Like, I am not comfortable in this scene. The movie does such a great job of framing the scene, and everyone on screen acts so damn well during this one death scene that while it's happening, you are genuinely afraid, or at least I was. It's so unsettling to actually witness. It's like witnessing a murder in real life. Top-notch work there. I am still floored by how good that was. Now, the movie's been getting a lot of unfair press as far as, is this going to inspire copycat killers? What are you going to do with the impressionable youth? And, oh, think of the children! It's the same argument we've heard for the last couple of decades. Video games are bad. Rock and roll music is bad. Dungeons and Dragons is bad. It's just the next scapegoat. But actually, I would say the movie is beneficial in a number of ways. For starters, it talks pretty openly about just being nice to other people. Arthur didn't have any good in his life. He was surrounded by jerks. His mother lied to him constantly. There's some really dark stuff that goes on that I'm not going to spoil here. If he just had one friend to vent this to, one person to stick around and back him up, this would be an entirely different movie. But he doesn't have that. So one of the underlying themes comes down to treat others well. It's a universally accepted lesson. I don't think anyone will have a problem with it. Yes, the message is delivered in a gory, disturbing, upsetting way, but my God, is it effective. And the other thing, and this ties in very much with the first theme, is how to treat others with mental illness. Now, early on in the movie, Arthur reveals that he has this condition that forces him to laugh uncontrollably. The movie never says the word Tourette's, but think Tourette's. His tic is he just laughs. And that gets him in a lot of awkward situations. He gets beaten up for it. He gets humiliated for it. He tries to be nice about this, and he actually has a card that says, I have a condition. Just don't be freaked out. And no one cares. There's this scene where Arthur wants to be a comedian, and he has this little notebook that he puts jokes in, and occasionally journals a few other thoughts. One of the notes is, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but it's something like, the worst part about mental illness is others want you to pretend like you don't have it. Okay, in terms of writing, that's like boomer meme quality, but the message at its core is poignant. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, and that, at its core, is what Joker's about. And all the battles that Joker has to internalize, all of the self-loathing and the vitriol and the anger about how bad the world is builds up too much, and eventually he has to release it the only way he knows how, through violence. Because at that point, it's the only thing in his life that makes sense. And I really think there's a discussion that can be had about that. Again, the message is delivered in a very dark and disturbing way, but it is very effective. Now, that being said, this is an extremely upsetting movie because it does such a good job portraying the difficulties of mental illness and just the crushing isolation that Arthur has to go through. The movie does not hold back. You get to see everything, and a lot of it is very uncomfortable, like the earlier death scene I mentioned. But one thing I really appreciated about the writing was how smooth the transformation was. In The Killing Joke, you've got that one moment at the very end where Joker finally snaps and he goes off the deep end. I kept looking for that in this movie, and there is none. It is such a smooth transition from start to finish that there is no one point where he decides, okay, I'm gonna be a bad guy. Imagine you've got a straw. In The Killing Joke, you've got one clean break right at the very end, but in this movie, you've got a series of small bends that eventually bend the straw around like this. That probably doesn't make any sense, but it does in my head. The thing is, his transformation was so gradual and so carefully written that it is possibly the best superhero movie I've ever seen. If DC had been writing at this level of quality the entire time, Marvel wouldn't stand a bloody chance against them. If you are even slightly on the fence about watching this movie, just go see it. Don't bring the kids, you will mess them up, but definitely go give the movie a shot yourself if you get the chance. I almost never see a movie in theaters more than once. I'm going to go back and see this one next week. And I might use this movie in an essay later on about the visualization and personalization of mental health, but we'll have to see. But again, definitely give this movie a chance. It's worth it.